This guy's made off with thousands because he's resold the same ticket over and over. They go to scan in and it says, no, this ticket's already scanned in. And then the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person. And these people have paid $200 for the ticket. The event might be sold out. They can't get in.
Corey Topp. He's been creating events for 20 years, scaling from backyard parties to selling out 10,000-person festivals at Sydney's Music Bowl. After watching ticketing platforms crash on sales, scammers destroy experiences, and losing control of his own events, he built Eventflo, a blockchain platform that's giving organisers their power back.
I did hear some of the problem stories on this actually. People that had saved up to buy the ticket of a lifetime.
There was a most recent example, it was all in the news, the Knockout Festival. This guy had essentially been selling the same ticket to all these multiple people. So then the first person that's got the actual ticket, they scan in because it's got the one code, and they get in fine. Then all the other people that have been sold the same ticket, come on, can't you just let me in? I've paid for it. Then these people are heartbroken at the door. We've sat there for hours with Roger Field, who's one of our shareholders, well, ex-CEO of Live Nation for 14 years. We would just complain about the platforms like every day. We'd go on sale and the site would crash year after year of having poor fan experiences, and then us seeing our bottom line get hurt by poor event tech, booking fees. We just thought enough's enough.
So this is a key pillar to how your Eventflo system works. Talk to us because it's pretty fascinating. Corey Topp, welcome to Flow Zone.
Thank you very much, my man. What an intro.
Oh man, I got wound up on that. I got wound up, I think, because I know how hard it is to plan an event. I know how hard it is to herd the cats of talent and venues and everything else that goes with it.
Yep.
But to actually be able to take it from backyard to selling out 10,000 people music bowls, man, it's pretty incredible. So I want to get straight into it with you, and I just want to know about what this looks like. I think building a business like this, you've usually got to observe some kind of problem, some kind of mistake that you've either been making yourself repeatedly or that you're observing out there in the universe. So what's the biggest mistake that's been happening with events over the last, 5 to 7 years that's got you going, I'm going to make this a whole company. I'm going to make it my life?
Yeah, well, I mean, for us, it's, making me look old now, but 20 years. I've been in the game 20 years, and one of our shareholders, Richie, has been in the game for 30 years. So it's been a long time of, as you say, headaches and problems. And, I think it's pretty well documented, the challenges that the event industry has, especially from the fan side. You always see these articles coming out, certain ticketing companies have crashed when there's been a huge on sale, and, whether it's sporting events or concerts or whatever it might be. So there's that real lack of fan, experience and care for the fan. So as I said, that's pretty well documented. But what's not really well documented is the organizer side of things, the event organizer side. And, I'm a pretty fiery human. So being the organizer and a fan at the same time, when I sort of see things coming in from the fan as the organizer, I'm like, God, you guys, you just have no idea what's going on in the background. And it really kind of cuts deep when they're kind of like, fair enough, they're not having a great experience. So they're sort of, making complaints and kicking up a stink. But what's actually going on in the background and what they think is happening are two different things. So I think that's where a lot of it came from. It's just kind of like this year after year of like having poor fan experiences, and then us seeing our bottom line get hurt by poor event tech, booking fees and all these sorts of things. And then we just thought, like enough's enough. I shared an office with Richie, and we would just complain about the platforms like every day, when things would happen, like we'd go on sale and the site would crash, and then all the fans would be kicking up a stink. And that sucks for them because they can't buy tickets, but we're looking at our P&L and our break even and just going, holy shit, like this is going to kill us. So it's definitely looking at it from both the fan and the organizer side that really got us to say, hey, let's get together and first of all create something that can help solve our problems, but then also for obviously the fan as well.
Yeah, look, that's a big set of problems to take on, and I fully get you. Like, I was fairly heavily involved in producing music and running events in music before I got really serious about real estate and scaling the group of companies that I've got. And it was like almost an each way bet for a while. And it was one of the hardest things, like you talk about, to be multiple character types at once.
Yeah.
You know, I really felt for the publicans because I didn't think, like, we were playing a lot of big pubs like Lansdowne in Sydney and, you know, other places where you get like the Hilltop Hoods or whatever. There was one in Newcastle called the Cambridge, played Perisher and stuff like that. All of those venues, man, they're only just making their profit. Like on the last handful of ticket sales, it's actually alcohol that they make most of it on.
Yep.
You know, they're just covering the bands.
Yeah.
But then if the people are only turning up towards the end of the event, then they're getting that last act that's putting a lot of emphasis on that, and they remember the whole venue based on that experience.
Yep.
So what were some of the things that you talked about there that like the fans were having an experience that felt like it was a different set of problems to what you were seeing from the other end? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think probably the best example is what happened with us when COVID hit. We were at the Music Bowl, we had to use Ticketek, and it was 6 days before the event was meant to happen. And so this was our second year at the Music Bowl. So we'd been, you know, clubs, pubs, rooftops, whatever. Had 1 year at the Music Bowl. Whenever you do something big for the first time, you don't generally make a lot of money. Second year, we were in a really good position. We'd been building Reminisce for 8 years at this point.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there going, all right, 8 years of blood, sweat and tears, hard work, little bit of play money here and there, but, you know, nothing substantial. Awesome. Now's our time to actually get some reward for building this thing for 8 years. And then 6 days out, they were just like, nah, all over. Lockdown, and the event's done. And for us, the most difficult thing was that because it's a government venue, Arts Centre Melbourne, the funds have to be held in trust. So we don't get access to the ticket monies, even though we've invested in artist deposits, production deposits, marketing, branding, all this sort of stuff. So we're in the can, you know, 100K, and we've got all this ticket money sitting there in trust, and we're just in no man's land. So then it became really difficult because then the whole refunds thing comes out, and it's like, all right, well, we're going to postpone this event till we don't know when. We would love your support, guys. You can get a refund because you're entitled to one, but we would love you to hold the funds. So I think, numbers off the top of my head, I think we'd sold like 8,000 tickets. Then 2,000 of them were refunded.
What sort of money is in 8,000 tickets, like in gross dollar volume?
Yeah, I think it was almost $1 million in revenue.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And so we were sitting there going, all right, cool. We've got 6,000 tickets that are still in the bank, quote unquote, but not in our bank.
Yeah.
And so then what happened is we just waited. You know, we waited. And so we originally postponed it to October.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. And then we had to postpone it till the next March. So this was March 2021. The event was meant to be in March 2020. And we got to say November, and the Music Bowl had built these pods, these like socially distanced COVID pods. So we could do an event. So we were like, awesome, this is great. You know, we're lucky that they've done the pods, da-da-da. And they said, yep, no worries. So the capacity is only 3,000 because everyone had to be separated. So you're going to have to run 2 events. And I'm like, oh shit, how's that going to work? They go, oh, you're going to have to refund everyone and they're going to have to rebuy.
Whoa.
And I'm like, oh no, like this is not going to be good. And then we'd been getting complaints for the whole previous 6 months of people saying, I've been applying for a refund. I'm not hearing anyone. This is bullshit, blah, 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 just nonstop every day, every week. And we it's like a black hole. We don't have any control over what Ticketek are doing and how they're processing the refunds. So we had this really sort of negative sentiment out there. And then I was like, okay, we need to announce that we have to refund everyone. They've held their money for 6 months, but then they've got to rebuy. I'm like, do we go positive or do we go negative? Do we say, oh, unfortunately, or guys, great news, we're going to do a reminisce? We went on the positive side, and, you know, the event was amazing in the end, but when we relaunched it, we got so much blowback of people just saying, I supported you for 6 months and, you know, this, that, and the other. And, you know, everyone's angry, banging the table. And to answer your question, like that is a good example of going, shit, like if you actually understand that there's people behind these events and there's, yes, it's technology and yes, it's, you know, other organizations involved, but there's people behind it. So we're just trying our best to help you guys. But on the fan side, they just see brand, oh, this isn't fair. They're trying to take my money. So those sorts of really tough experiences are what spawned the idea and the want for something like Eventflo to exist.
Yeah. I think it's a really important problem to solve.
Yeah.
And look, that perception issue is a tough one. Like I've gotten to know the organisers of Groove in the Moon reasonably well because they booked my act left to centre years back. And it was like, still today, the best gig that we played. And just the care factor from the organisers, Cattle Yard Promotions, they ended up partnering with someone bigger. But I remember talking to Rod around COVID time, and he's just like, man, we've done a few of these, booked, cancelled again. And, regional areas helped it a little bit because they were a bit further from the cities where the issues were. But he's like, if we don't partner with someone, like there's no way that we can keep putting on a festival of this standard without having like a big brother that's going to kind of have a bit of clout. Because it's got to go right through the government sort of side of things as well when you've got a government venue like you talked about.
Absolutely.
And the ability for them to kind of like not pass on what's going on. Then you got a big group like Ticketek. It puts a lot of your future and the future of the fans and the bands out of your control.
Yep.
So,
Certainly
yes,
does.
very worthwhile problem to solve, I can see. So, look, let's go back. Let's go back a bit here. The early foundation of you, like you were running events when you were like 10.
Yeah, I was.
I remember picking that up in a bit of your content.
Yeah.
So like 10th birthday parties, like you're hosting those parties and then on to high school parties. Like, I suppose, where did you pick that stuff up and what was compelling you to do it then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where it sort of came from, but I've always kind of wanted everything like extra. Like mum was always like, mate, like you want 3 days, you want a slumber party, then you go to time zone and then laser tag and then another sleepover, all this. Like for me, it always had to be extra. It always had to be bigger, 3-day big extravaganzas. And it always just had to be a lot. And, I was always kind of a bit of a natural, I guess, at hosting and, creating experiences. Probably get it from my dad. He's a bit like that. So yeah, that's kind of where it all spawned from, and then that went into high school and, my house was the party house, had a shed, converted it into just like a, mate's kind of den and everyone used to crash there and used to have parties there and, always go there after other parties. And that's kind of where it all spawned from.
What do you think you learned during that formative era? It's hard to know what you're learning at the time, but you get reflections, right?
Yeah.
I've had that a lot. What do you think you learned during that formative era about like people who attend events and behaviours and what they sort of crave / need / want?
Yeah, I think it's probably not even necessarily anything really conscious that obviously I wasn't thinking of it at the time. But even now, it was probably more just like I've always been quite dialed into people and have a pretty sort of strong emotional IQ and picking up on energy and things like that. So I think it's probably around that side of it, of understanding like what's going to work. Like I can sort of walk into a room and go, no, this is not going to be a vibe. Like everyone's just going to end up standing over there at those bar tables. They're not going to want to come onto the dance floor. You've got to make it more inviting. You've got to have different locations of, where the DJ booth is, speakers, toilets, how people are going to move around the venue. Like what's the vibe going to look like? I've always had a pretty good knack for that. So I think that probably I was developing that during those early years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's valuable. When you've developed the sense of EQ that you've got, an IQ for your industry, you end up with a pretty magic kind of combination to go and put in action. Yeah. So it might have given you a different sort of lens, I suppose, on how this works and even other people in your industry. So I'm gonna let you finish your sentence for me because I think there could be a banger in here.
Okay.
Most people fail at events because they think it's about the event when it's actually about...
It's about how people are going to feel when they're at the event or leaving the event. Yeah, it's all emotion and it's all storytelling. And anyone that's followed me for long enough or will follow me, I'm just banging on about storytelling all the time. So it's about giving people an experience, whether that's escapism or whether that's, adding value to, their business or their knowledge base or, whatever it is. Or you're selling them the dream of having a better life in 5 years' time at a business event. Or, do you want to provide a place where they can just go and forget about the world for a few hours? That's what a lot of people don't focus on. Plenty of people do because there's so many amazing events out there and, brands that have built over a long period of time nail it. But a lot of people skip over it because they're too sort of worried about, oh shit, I've just got to, get the tickets on sale and, tickets selling fast and hey, this is going to be fun. And
offer tactics to kind of get people to act now, but they don't know what they're acting on. They just know that there's a promotion.
Yep, exactly.
I like the storytelling aspect you're talking about. So like, what would be an example if someone was running an event, and you can kind of pick the genre, whether it's corporate or a big 30th birthday or something like that. How do you get the storytelling into that so that the people who come across your really unique forms of marketing, especially with Sellout System and now Eventflo with Eva involved, the AI, we'll talk about that in a minute. What kind of storytelling would you pick up with an event, and how you gain that insight so you can weave it in?
Yeah, I like to use the cooking analogy. I love cooking as well, so I always like a good cooking analogy. But you speak to any good chef or any good restaurant, and they always say it's all in the prep. So you sit there before doors open. You're sitting there prepping everything, organising everything, having all the dishes mapped out, all the ingredients, condiments, all of that. It's all there, ready to go. So then when the shit hits the fan and the chaos starts, you just know exactly what you're doing. It's similar with events. Events are so chaotic that a lot of event organisers just roll from one to the next, and it's like, the last thing they think about is, we're launching tomorrow. Quickly get the post ready, get the email ready. Where what you need to do is you need to have planning sessions beforehand, and that's the first phase of the Sellout System is plan. So you need to sort of sit down and go, all right, like we've got our event. If it's an annual event, say, how is it different from last year? That's the first one that I always like to tick off the rank. So it's like, you had last year, what are you doing differently and why? Oh, guys, this year we've doubled the VIP area because last year you guys said that, we needed more VIP tickets, or we've got an artist that we've booked and it's the first time they've ever been to Australia. Boom, that's a storyline. Maybe we've got a vendor that we've booked, a food truck or something that everyone loves. That's a storyline. So you sort of pick all of these different storylines for your event, and then you map them out and you carry them through your event campaign. So it's almost like a Netflix series, right? When, you got 8 episodes and everyone, like, oh no, are they going to fall off that cliff or, whatever it is. So you leave people little cliffhangers through the different stages of your event campaign so they keep wanting to know more and they feel like that they're on the journey with you. And then by the time you get to the end, you've built up this big sort of list of narratives and storylines, and these people feel like, God, I'm part of something. I'm part of this journey. As I said, whether it's escapism or, selling the dream for what they want their life to be in 5 years, you've taken them sort of on that journey with you in like a little window to the whole thing. And people don't even realize, but they just feel connected to your brand. Yeah.
I think that makes so much sense. Hey, if you're getting value from these conversations, the best way to support the show is to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating. It helps more people discover the podcast and allows me to keep making these episodes packed with value. Thanks so much in advance. All these flashbacks are coming from my early music days, like how we made that part of the story.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things, because I was both a fan and a performer, and I sort of got the unofficial job of organising the events because I fancied myself as an early stage businessman at the time. So I'm like, I'll take care of this, guys. And I went to all the pubs during business hours. But without knowing it also, I think what we had so much cut through success was that the fans were part of a movement.
Yep.
And we were bringing a new kind of hip hop because we're called Left to Centre for a reason. We had electric violins on stage. We had our music was more upbeat and aspirational than the typical hip hop, which the American hip hop at the time was pretty gangster and guns and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And in Australia, it was all about suppressing the underground culture and keeping it old school. There was a couple of name acts like Hilltop Hoods getting around, but they'd been underground for years prior. And all the ones that had been around since before then, they did not want to play a public venue. So we thought, well, let's bring something to it. We're going to make music that on first listen sounds great. We're going to make music that references these same people we're having a game of pool with beforehand.
Yep.
And that helped, but that was on such a smaller scale, and it wasn't finding an audience beforehand. They were already our team. They were already our people. So that would have changed a lot, though. With finding your audience now, in the age of AI, personal brands, and then these big conglomerates that have gone and bought a number of different groups during COVID, which kind of decimated a big chunk of the industry. How is that starting to sort of change things for you now?
Yeah, a lot. That last sort of point that you mentioned is the one that's making things difficult for freedom of selection. You want, if you're an organisation, a venue, an event organiser, whatever it might be, you want the freedom to be able to choose the platforms that suit your event and your brand and your values the best. And what is happening now is that a lot of it is, as you said, controlled by large conglomerates, large corporations. They then have access to, whether it's talent or, financial, whatever it is. And there's a lot of boxing in, and a lot of the time not a lot of choice, for certain organisers, because the venue's gone and done a big deal with a ticketing platform, for example.
So that's one of the key areas where they're limited on choice, the ticketing platform. That sounds like something you don't have a lot of freedom on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exclusive contracts that are really difficult. And look, everyone's running a business, right? So these venues, they go, well, why wouldn't I want $1 million up front to do this contract?
Yeah.
Like, who wouldn't? So they just say, okay, yep, sounds good, because they don't know, and probably until this point there hasn't been a lot of anything better out there. One of the things we say about Eventflo is all of these platforms are built to process tickets.
Yeah.
Eventflo is built to sell tickets.
Yeah.
So having a platform like this to be able to actually rocket ship your event and help your event, not hinder it, has not been something that these companies have had to build, because they just establish control through these large contracts and these large deals.
Yeah.
So that's essentially, how it works. It's not just events. That sort of stuff goes on everywhere, in all types of industries.
Yeah.
But in the event industry, a lot of it is due to large ticketing deals. And therefore it's almost like it's a for a Band-Aid solution. We don't need to innovate. We don't need to have the best product or anything like that. We can just build a Toyota and that'll do. And then we just get on with it, worry about our profit.
Yeah. Look, there's a rub there, and whether it's like global media giants having access to the consumers first, or whether it's, like you said, exclusive partnerships that are there. There has been a real theme over the last particularly since COVID, but I think it was starting to emerge before that. Like, you look at other independent brands starting to pop up with, like, craft beer is a prime example.
Yeah.
And venues as well, like more micro venues that have a real theme, but then the same owner opens 7 of them.
Yep.
Like you've seen with some of the big groups like Speakeasy, Swillhouse, those sort of guys. You started in that very boutique environment, like the backyard party, 30 mates at a backyard party. And I think from what I remember, it was like counting down the top 50 house tracks at the time.
Yep.
So how did that take you from 30 people to, I think you got that to like 1,000, then you're doing this NFL thing, and then Sydney Myer Music Bowl. Just join the dots for me there and for our listeners, because I think that everyone can take something from this in their own world.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to just apply to the event space, but I always think that the best ideas, they don't come from any type of intention necessarily. We never intended to create a brand. We never intended to create a business. It was literally just came from the fact that I had a fascination with how music can just instantly take you back to a moment in time, and every single person that's watching or listening now always has that song. And one thing I always like to say is that one song. Everyone's got that one song. Whenever it comes on, like, I'm literally getting tingles on the back of my neck now thinking about it myself.
What's your song?
Music Sounds Better With You.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so that was the song that started Reminisce. And I was having a really shit time in my life, and I was feeling down in the dumps, and the song came on, and I was driving in the car, and it instantly transported me back, and I was, and it just can change your mood. So that was kind of the spark for it all. And then I started thinking, hey, maybe we should do something. And I was saying to my mates, let's do like a Triple J Hottest 100, but for house music. And then one of my mates, Benji, said, let's do it at Bila, which was the party house at the time. So that's kind of where it all spawned. We just did it with a few mates, emailed in some votes. I tallied them up manually. And then, everyone was just like, that was so good. Like the energy and, everyone was just having such a good time. You guys should do it as an actual event. So that must have been like summer of 2011. And then we ended up doing the first Reminisce in Feb 2012 at Prince. So
Yeah.
that was 1,000 people. And then that's where it all kind of spawned from. And just, it grew year on year up until 2019, which is when we took it to the bowl, which that was a big jump. That was like 1,200 people to 10,000.
Yeah. Wow. Well, yeah, that's pretty incredible. And there needs to be a system behind these sort of things. So,
Yeah.
you know, I remember one of my mentors saying to me early on when I got into business, because my engineering background was going nuts over how unsophisticated the real estate sector was. Like,
Yep.
I just couldn't believe client records were flying around on pieces of paper like doctors used to use. I couldn't believe that, like, you know, the most sophisticated databases that were available were just something that you wouldn't even open now, but most people are using Outlook. And I'm just like, there's got to be a better way. So
Absolutely.
I started determining those systems through necessity, I suppose. What are we going for? What's in the way of it? Let's remove that, go again. It's the first principles thing. When you started building the sellout system, you know, you were in the middle of like running Reminisce. You had some major corporate digital marketing gigs with like Crown Bet, NAB, like these are serious boardrooms to get yourself into this arena.
Yep.
So you've left this sort of corporate world, or you had it running on the side and started going, you know, for the sellout system and empire. What do those steps look like at that point?
Yeah, so I didn't have a label on it until I started the whole sellout brand, which was again during COVID. So it was like a lot of this reflection happening and not a lot of time to do much else. So it's kind of taking a step out, looking back in and going, all right, like I've got all these pieces, I've got this experience, this story, this, that, and the other. Oh, this is actually a system. You know, it's a certain way of doing things. At the start, it was just like what came naturally to me. And I've always, again, like I said, I've always been quite an emotionally aware person who values storytelling. And so I just was like, oh, I'm just doing what I do.
Yeah.
But then I started realizing it was like a real rinse and repeat formula. But it wasn't until I had that experience in corporate digital, you know, spending millions and millions of dollars, sometimes a month or even a week during Spring Carnival with Crown Bet.
Yeah.
And seeing how this sort of enterprise digital works and really understanding like the science behind it, that I realized, oh, hang on, like I'm onto something here. And then, you know, since the sellout system, I put a label on it in 2019 to now, it's even evolved since then. But at the start, it was just a very, you know, simple philosophy of understanding and I love this quote, that marketing is part art and part science.
Yeah.
Because it absolutely is.
I agree with that.
And it's understanding that the art and the science, because a lot of event organisers, they're great at the art, but they're not great at the science.
Yeah.
So how do you simplify that science down? Because if you give them too much information about algorithms and this and that, it just ain't going to happen. So it's like, how do you present the system in a nice, simple way for them to understand the science enough to get results and then let them do what they do? And that's the art side of things, and tell stories and generate hype and have good creative and all that sort of side of it. So at its core, that's where the sort of magic is, that mesh between the art and the science.
We've got to hear the steps to this system now. I heard plan was in there. Is that step one?
Yeah.
How many steps are in it? Can you walk us through it?
Yeah, there's 4 phases. And as I said, it has evolved. Originally, it was like 4 modules with 5 lessons in each, and that was a 20-step thing. It was like how to do this, how to do that, and then over time, it's really stripped back, and it's just got the 4 phases now, and it's what to do when you're planning, what to do when you launch a campaign, what to do in the mid-campaign, and what to do in the run home. So it essentially mirrors an event campaign.
Yeah.
Launch, mid-campaign, run home, and then you've got your planning phase. So the main thing that people don't sort of understand, or the people that I see that need help, that have got a gap, that they don't understand, is that they need to behave differently in the launch compared to the mid-campaign compared to the run home. They need to speak to different people in a different way. They need to leverage different emotional triggers like urgency and scarcity and FOMO and all these sorts of things. So you've got all these, you know, terminologies and how you need to do bits and pieces here, bits and pieces there, tactics, strategy. The sellout system is just like a playbook or a Bible for what to do and when in each stage of the campaign, essentially.
I think everyone benefits from a roadmap.
Yeah.
I'm massive on systems, right? I've got that many acronyms for mine. Like one of my primary real estate ones is the fishing upstream system, which I was just stoked because it's like, what's all the fuss about? Because it's FUSS, you know, that like you tie acronyms to things and then it gives it a name.
Yeah.
And then you're like, shit, I've got a name. I better make sure it actually all adds up. But I've had the same problem. I've been trying to counterbalance everything that they could get wrong in advance. So you've got an instruction manual, basically what happens if you turn the wrong direction, turn back there. But then there's so much detail, they don't absorb it. So I've gone right back to having roadmaps. And then just like when they get to certain stages of the roadmap, these are levers you can pull.
Yep.
I remember seeing something, because I've watched a bit of your content. It's pretty engaging content, by the way. I do recommend our listeners and viewers do check it out because it applies to every business. Like you think about, if you're in a recruitment company and you get a new candidate, you can make an event of that. You know, you can make an event of launching a campaign.
Absolutely.
You can do a staff party. You can do a family birthday party as well. But like if you're in a game like property or creative agency or anything like that, like you can launch a listing like it's a full-on event. And that's something I did take into when I got into real estate, and particularly project marketing. I saw something in there that said, you've really got to work on those fence sitters because like as soon as you can get them to convert to an actual person doing it, then maybe there's some sort of osmosis effect and they become kind of advocates. Is that kind of the stages of the journey that you're talking about there?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And going back to what you were saying about the real estate side of things, but what you were saying before around what do people get wrong or whatever, it's people don't remember what you say, it's how you make them feel. And it's similar. Like if people are coming to an open and you make it an experience, they're going to leave and go, that was fucking awesome. Yeah. Maybe they might not buy that place, but they're going to remember who to call when they want one. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's all about how you're making people feel, you know, that's the most important part.
Yeah, I think there's real value in that. And, you know, like to put some extra flavor on that, I think your planning stage, you are deciding how you want people to feel, right?
Yep.
And you're taking in evidence of what's worked in the past and, you know, what this same cohort of people have experienced. And one of the key things that I've done in a parallel industry, like I said, in real estate or in music for that matter, is rather than waiting to the event for them to have that feeling, is to give them a feeling right back at the invite stage.
Yeah.
You know, like I used to type it out on my phone before I went to sleep because I was on night shift when I was in the trade and engineering sector. And it was only $4.99 texts at a time you could send off this particular device. But I would curate the messages to groups. I had groups built out. This is before CRMs were in my life.
Yeah.
They're probably around, but not in my life.
Yeah.
And I would always make it based on something they told me that they were into before, or an invite that they'd asked me to give, or one of those lesser known shows where we'd have an opportunity to meet other members of the bands and stuff like that.
Yep.
And they're like, thanks so much. Now, this was always before any marketing went up. Like, you know, even if there was a big act coming and I'm like, when are the bill posters going up? Because, you know, they spray them up. They still do it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to know a couple of days before that so I could get in, hey, you're going to start seeing this around and what I've got for you is.
Yep.
And then even if you don't get it perfect at the event itself, whether it's an open house or a party or whatever, they felt special by being invited, and they're almost more likely to be kind of accommodating if things aren't perfect because they're like, well, I'm kind of part of this event and I'm supposed you're talking about my event here.
Absolutely.
You find that?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's just those little touches that people remember and the attention to detail. One of the other quotes, there's plenty of them that are in the sellout system, is the devil's in the detail. You know, it really is. And that's where a lot of event organisers, they skip over it because, you know, they're quite busy and chaotic and they sort of miss that level of detail. But when people feel like, hey, these people have gone out of their way to, you know, to acknowledge me and take me on the journey, they just absolutely love it. Like right now, literally just before I came here, I had a meeting with Danny, our marketing manager, and we were going through our first mail out to the Reminisce database because we're launching in a few weeks. And we did a survey from last year's attendees, but then also our whole database. We ended up doing a bigger one this year. We got like 1,000 people responded to a survey. Like 1,000 people care enough to tell us how we can improve or what they love about Reminisce.
That is so huge. Out of a 10,000 audience or thereabouts.
Yeah, our database is bigger, but 10,000 people are coming to the event.
Yeah.
So it's massive, and we pride we run our whole business on that. that sort of cadence. And so anyway, we got all the data, and then it's like talking about before about the storylines, like there's all your storylines. Like you've got 1,000 people that have just told you exactly what they want.
Yeah.
Then you grab that and you use that to plan out, your whole entire campaign. And so we sent 2 emails. We haven't sent them yet. We're planning them. The first one is going to the people who responded to the survey, and then the people who are just on the database. So they're 2 different types of people, and you want to speak to them differently, and you want to make the people who gave you their time and effort to give you their feedback, make them feel special and reward them for doing that. Thank them for their time. Just acknowledge the fact that they've spent time doing that. Just these little things like that really, not even consciously, but subconsciously stick in people's mind and help you get that real sort of brand stickiness.
Hey, if you're getting value from these conversations, the best way to support the show is to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating. It helps more people discover the podcast and allows me to keep making these episodes packed with value. Thanks so much in advance. I think even beyond brand stickiness, what's beautiful about that is that you're just getting closer to your customer. And I can't stress it enough. I think it's Peter Drucker that says, if you don't have a customer, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
So many people are building their business for their staff or their work environment or their profit or loss or whatever. But who are you serving? And then there's the core customer, which you hear scaling up circles talk about. The core customer is the one that will fill out a survey.
Yeah.
They're one that's bought off you more than once. They're the ones that will give you feedback even if they've had a shit time because they want you to survive and be better.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're still doing that, now you're at scale, there's it seems to be some of the magic that's going to make this thing really work.
Absolutely. And I'll look back to your original question in a sec, but there's another example of when we had these big customer service dramas with Tailgate one year. It was the first year that we did it. We had huge food and beverage issues. There was a lot of reasons behind it. But the reality is we didn't provide a good enough food and beverage service than what we should have.
And this is for an NFL event, by the way. So this is for the big one, the Super Bowl. Yeah. And you're running an Australian version here. Now, this is up to now 1,500 people or something like that are attending this in the order of?
Yeah, 1,500 at Timbiard in Melbourne, and we've got Sydney at Ivy and Brisbane as well. So 3 cities.
Whoa. Yeah, well, that's even grown some legs since last time I became aware of it. So, carry on. Yeah,
so the first year we did it, we had all these issues with the food and beverage service, and I knew about halfway through the day that this wasn't going to be good. I was like, we're going to get some real blowback here. So I just went into socials mode and started getting on socials, and we were already getting DMs and comments and whatnot. And so we were just hosing that down all day. And then as soon as the event finished, I just said, what's your phone number? To every single person that was complaining to us, what's your phone number? What's your phone number? I was just calling every single person that was complaining and explaining to them what had happened. Now, 80% of them, after I'd spoken to them, were fine because they just wanted to understand. Well, they didn't even know, but in reality, most people just want to understand what happened.
Yeah.
They want blood at the start.
Yeah.
And then they're like, holy shit, the guy who's running this event's calling me. Like, what the hell? And you just explain to them what happened.
What had happened? Out of curiosity, it's fascinating to hear.
Yeah. It was a 40-degree day, and the venue they underestimated how fast these people were going to drink.
Yeah.
So it was 40 degrees. They only had 1 or 2 pallets of bud in the fridge. And so these people were drinking it faster than it could cool.
Yeah.
And so people were getting warm beers, and then they were just drinking half of them, leaving them on the thing, grabbing another one. And it just ended up this snowball effect.
Yeah.
And the food service wasn't up to par either. Just didn't, underestimated how much people would eat. And, it was just a real sort of kick in the face and a real reminder of what can happen on a first year of something when you just don't know exactly what's going to happen. So, there was a lot of lessons out of it.
But you know what? You've grabbed that data.
Yeah.
How did you go getting those people back the next year?
Yeah, so I spent the whole next week calling the people that complained as well, because we did a feedback form. Some of it was really brutal, and so it was tough. It was a very emotionally heavy week.
Oh man, especially when you ask for it, it starts coming like, I didn't mean that much.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. So I think I called about 85 people during the week. Got it done, and look, there's some of them that will never come back. That's just the reality. But I'm sure there was a lot of people that appreciated the call. Some of them we gave refunds because they had really bad experiences. Some of them we comped them tables for the next year and all that sort of stuff. And we spent the whole time hosing it all down, apologising, taking responsibility. But that's what I mean, that level of sort of care and detail, people remember that. Because if we just didn't do that and just went on the next year, hey guys, we're back, blah, 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 people would have gone, hang on, these guys totally fucked this last year.
Yeah.
And what are they doing to fix it? You know, how are they taking responsibility for their actions? So that level of care and detail is really important.
Well, yeah, like well done on that. Hats off. It's freaking hard when it's happening.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember, I've had examples like that. Like I'm just going to say a business one where we got smashed in the media, right? Absolutely smashed. And it kept going and going and going for weeks. And they were pressing the advantage because they knew we wouldn't get. We got accused of double dipping, you know, which wasn't actually happening, but it was pretty easy to make it look like that, you know, especially the way that they got the media on board.
Yep.
And it was going to take like 12 weeks for us to get a regulator report to prove that we weren't. That like in the meantime, they just pounded it. And it was really hard not getting involved in the media. And, you know, I developed this little slogan that like, look, if you're going to wrestle with pigs, you got to realise that you're both going to end up covered in shit.
Yeah.
But except the pig's going to love it.
Yeah.
Right? And in our case, we didn't want to go and wrestle with the people that were doing the damage. We wanted to go and speak to the people that it felt like we'd broken their trust, who are our customers and clients and team members and community affiliates and whatever. And it was just one call after the other. And look, some of them were catching on the back end of it through someone else. So you just get these out of it and you'd think it was just about all done and then boom, there's another one.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you don't keep turning up and dealing with it, you're not actually getting the noise to understand what the problem is to be solved.
Yep.
And in a lot of cases, it was nothing to do with what the allegations were. They actually thought that when they went through everything, that just like, well, for those 4 or 5 people that were in the crossover period that, you know, may have been in that stage, were they disadvantaged? You know, did they still end up with what? No, okay, it wasn't an issue. The issue was more about communicating it. Communicating what had occurred. And, you know, you're throwing a bit of legals, you're throwing something to do with a regulator or a government, like you would have had with Sydney Myer, like you would have had with Ticketek. And, you know, it's like Winston Churchill said, if you find yourself in hell, you know, just keep going. Like, so you find yourself walking through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
So you've done that. Now, popping out the other side of that, Eventflo, this shirt you've got on, which I'm busting for one of those.
Fresh
I like
merch.
purple.
Yeah.
It's the colour of Flow for me. And Flow's own podcast, so maybe that's the main reason.
There you go. I love it.
Blockchain.
Yes.
Right, so this is a key pillar to how your Eventflo system works. I need you to unpack that for us. Talk to us like the audience here, because it's pretty fascinating.
It is fascinating, and as I was saying before, you don't often start out to do something and it ends up going in that direction, and that absolutely happened for us with blockchain. It's not like when we first talked about building something, we didn't say, let's build this on blockchain, and that wasn't always the intention behind it. It was what you said off the top, just came about from solving problems, our own ones first, and then realizing, hey, there's a wider problem at play here.
Yeah.
And we actually built an MVP, minimum viable product, and we were just about to roll it out. And then my business partner, co-founder, best mate, partner in all my businesses, Mark Middo, he's the tech guy.
Yeah.
So he was the one that said, I reckon we should build this on the blockchain. He's been into crypto since it started. And I remember one day back in like 2013, whatever it was, when Bitcoin had just come out, I walked into his apartment and I heard this, and I was like, what is that? He's like, it's a Bitcoin miner. I'm like, mate, where do you come up with this shit? Like, what? What are you talking about? What the hell is Bitcoin? And he's like, yeah, I run the, he had these little, they look like little graphics cards and they all have fans in them. He had like 3 or 4 of them running. And he's like, yeah, it mines them and it's, decentralized and all. I'm like, what are you talking about, mate? And he's like, yeah, you earn like 0.001 cent every, transaction. And at that stage, I was just like, straight over my head. And I'm still not like a crypto blockchain native today.
Yeah.
But obviously, being in the position I'm in, I've had a real quick fire, lesson in it in the last 2 years or so. So yeah, it never originally was planned to be on blockchain. It was when we were really looking at the problems of scammers, ticket fraud, resale, which is a huge issue in the industry that really hurts event organisers, and a lot of people don't understand why. that's when we thought, hang on, if we can use a technology that can't be scammed, can't be frauded, the QR codes change every 2 minutes, every ticket is a minted NFT on the blockchain that's got a public record on a public ledger that can never be changed, like it's all there for everyone to see till the end of time, well, that's got to be good, right? Like that's got to be a way that we can leverage technology to eliminate this fraud and these resale issues and scalping and all those sides of things. So that's where it all eventuated from.
I did hear some of the problem stories on this actually, like, people that had saved up to buy the ticket of their lifetime.
Yep.
They've missed the early releases, everything that goes on. You got kind of authorised resellers and you got unauthorised resellers, which is a fair chunk of them.
Yep.
I'm sure you're aware. And then they've gone and spent that big money and they've got a ticket which was counterfeit, and so with NFT, non-fungible tokens, like they cannot be replicated, and there's only one of them. That seems like a pretty good way to make sure that it's not being replicated. What about the transaction of the resale and how you deal with rules and all that sort of stuff? Because like they're worried about resales because they've still got original tickets to sell in a lot of cases. It's not just because like people are marking them up and making profit and they feel bad for the poor people buying the expensive tickets. They're equally as worried about their event and the tickets that they haven't been able to sell themselves, right?
Absolutely. That's a huge one and probably where the pain sort of stemmed from us. But then even on the fan side too, like there was a most recent example, it was all in the news, the Knockout Festival that HSU run in Sydney. They had, I think there was like 11 people or something that confronted this scammer. I don't know how they ended up getting his address and stuff, but this guy had essentially been selling the same ticket to all these multiple people. So then the first person that's got the actual ticket, they scan in because it's got the one code, they scan in, they get in fine. Then all the other people that have been sold the same ticket, this guy's made off with thousands because he's resold the same ticket over and over. They go to scan in and it says, no, this ticket's already scanned in. And then the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person. And these people have, as you said, paid $200 for the ticket. The event might be sold out. They can't get in. And, I've
their
seen
friends
it.
want to go in. They've got accommodation. They're all boozed up and who knows what else, outfits. This ruins the season for people.
Yeah, it's just so bad. And then we've had it at Reminisce. Every Reminisce, it happens where people come and our gate staff are like, they feel bad, right? Because there might be one person or two people going, come on, can't you just let me in? Oh, I've paid for it. They know that these people have been scammed and they've paid legitimate money for it, but you can't just let everyone in because that's just, you can't legally, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So then these people are heartbroken at the door. They either have to pay for another ticket if the event's not sold out. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, or they can't get in if it's sold out. So that's the issue on the fan side. And then on the organizer side, and this is what most people don't understand, with the way that the resale platforms work these days, let's say you buy a first release ticket for $100. Tickets are now $150 because they're on final release. You want to sell your ticket. You put that up for sale, then someone who wants to go to that event in the last week, they decide they're going to go to these third-party marketplaces and look to see if there's any $100 tickets on there that are first release priced when the tickets are now $150. So instead of talking about the sellout system, you've got your launch, mid-campaign and run home. The run home is like, that's where you put bread on the table as an event organizer. You know, it's like, cool, I've broken even last month. That's my profit. That's how I actually make a living. Well, now you just see it like this. It used to be like this. Now it's just like this because everyone's transacting on these third-party marketplaces and they're not transacting with you. And so that's a real problem. And we've sat there for hours and hours and hours and hours with Richie, Roger Field, who's one of our shareholders, well, ex-CEO of Live Nation for 14 years. All of us, have run events ourselves, all of our shareholders, and we've just basically mapped out the whole process for how the resale needs to work to ensure what we're now calling the value loop, which is fans, organisers, and Eventflo, so we can reinvest back in the industry, driving to our mission to pioneer a new era in events. Everyone's looked after, and that's the most important part. The person who buys the ticket, they can still have the safety of selling their ticket. Now the person who's buying the resold ticket, they still get a discount on what the current ticket price is, and then the money goes into the organiser's pocket. So everyone wins.
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
And that's, as you know, being in business, everyone wins business is the only way to do business.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. And look, you know, people will always question whether it's everyone wins or not. You know, you build something on blockchain and there's already suspicion.
Yep.
But like, it's not like you're leading with that as in, you know, we're blockchain, so we're better. I imagine that's something that you'd be wanting to mitigate, though, and letting people know that this is a safe version of it. How do you do that?
Absolutely. It's a real challenge. Hit the nail on the head. The way that we do it is to make our platform not even feel like you're using blockchain. Like, you use Eventflo, the fan will have no idea that it's an NFT ticket or they're using blockchain or anything like that. The only way to tell is that when you buy a ticket or when you log in, you need to verify your login because it's secure. Once you've done that and you've actually verified your email address or your mobile number, then you can then transact, buy tickets. You're actually minting on the blockchain as you're doing it, but you have no idea, you know.
Okay.
You can go into your ticket wallet and you can see the transaction ID and you can see your wallet, wallet ID and all that sort of stuff. If you want to really dig in and look at the details, you can see that the blockchain aspect of it. But other than that, it's just like normal, like you're buying a ticket.
Well, that gives a lot of confidence for someone who is tracking the trail if something's gone wrong too.
Yeah.
So, hey, this has flowed really well, man, just like Eventflo does, especially in flow zone territory. I've got the rapid fire now, the quick fire. So you give me your honest take on these. Ready? Most event organisers fail because?
They don't focus enough on storytelling.
Good. Traditional ticketing companies like Ticketek are?
Hampered by old technology.
Okay, that's fair call. Plus, they're trying to solve a different problem, right? They're trying to process it rather than sell it. I like that. That was a good point you made earlier.
Yeah.
The biggest waste of money in event marketing is?
Wasted ad spend.
That's good. Facebook ads for events work if you?
Just go all in on conversions.
Yeah. The difference between hobby event and business event is?
Your bottom line.
Event promoters who don't track their numbers are?
Fighting a losing battle.
The future of live events is?
In human experiences.
Couldn't agree with you more on that.
Yeah.
The age of AI, it's get them together, let them feel it, let them reminisce about it. Australian event culture compared to the rest of the world is?
Still in the nanny state format. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
Well, there's going to be some great opportunity to hear more of your insights. I do recommend that people follow on. And I suppose the question for our very business, entrepreneurial and aspirational audience, like, can we get access to working with Eventflo now, or is it only for really big things like Sydney Myer Music Bowl? Yeah,
so at the moment, with this summer, we're rolling out through our own events and our shareholder events. So it's now at the point where we're just about to go live, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Reminisce's first cab off the rank and, our other shareholder events. We test, we iterate things, and then we get the platform to a point where we're ready to open it up to the world. So post this summer of events in Australia, that's when it's going to be available for the outside organisers.
Unreal.
Yeah.
You'll be going through the baptism of fire yourself, learn all the lessons that need to be, and then everyone can just slide right in.
Yeah.
Corey, thanks very much for coming on Flow Zone, mate.
Thanks so much, my man. Appreciate it.